An atomic veteran is a veteran that has been or has had the potential of being exposed to ionization radiation. Some of these veterans are like the 250 to 350,000 veterans from 1945 to 1963, participating in on-site tests and support. The Inuiatak Atoll radiological cleanup veterans from 1977 to 1980.
I met a fellow one day wearing an atomic veteran's cap, and I asked him, what the heck is an atomic veteran? And I was one, and I didn't even know it. And he said, okay, Army Special Ops, and I see you were a sergeant, but were you in the service? It says atomic veteran. I said, well, yeah, that's what we're talking about, atomic veteran. I was a veteran of the bomb, or around that. Oh, that's interesting. Off he went.
Atomic veteran, what's that? And I'll say, well, I was involved with the testing of atomic bombs. Where? When? You know, they don't know. They never knew that we tested atomic bombs.
I have seen the dragon through clenched lids and arms pressed tight. I have felt its hot breath on my back and listened to the rumble of its voice. I have looked upon its breath, glowing amethyst, red and purple, climbing toward the stratosphere to deposit its venom downwind. I have waited in fear as my gums began to bleed and my hair came out in clumps as I began to heal. I breathed a prayer of thanks. After 50 years, our ranks are thin. We who have seen the dragon and survived. Those who have died or are sickened still. Their numbers are legion. All we can hope for, work for, pray for, is that no madman will ever be allowed to unleash the dragon again. For its legacy to all is death, disease, and decay. And I wrote that on 2nd November 2006.
So in the Navy and see the world, but I didn't get to see too much of the world, but I did see a lot of the atomic tests. I was up close and personal to the atomic tests.
I was actually drafted and married the same day and didn't know I had been drafted.
I joined the Navy with the promise of schooling. They sent me for school at the Coronado Amphib Base and taught me how to drive landing craft, so that was the extent of my schooling.
Got a draft notice to go in the Army and immediately joined the Air Force.
I worked for my uncle, and he had a pocket knife on the banister, and I was sitting there in the doorway whittling out me a new slingshot. And all of a sudden, a cop tapped me on the back. He said, come on, you're going to jail because you stole your uncle's pocket knife. So they put me in jail for that night.
Richard joined the Army in 1946. He was 16 years old. His grandfather needed to sign for him.
My mom, when I turned 17, signed for me to join the Navy. I was a tall, thin, 6'2" Texan that I had to put everywhere. I had to eat extra bananas to put on weight to get in.
So I got up the next morning and went to in front of the judge. The judge told me, he said, well, you got two choices. You can either spend 3 years in juvenile, or you can go in service for 3 years. So I stood there for a few minutes and I said, well, I'll go in service. And they said, well, will your parents sign the paper for you to go? And I said, no, they won't. He says, well, I don't need them anyway, so you're in service.
I go in and I said to my mom, she was sitting at the kitchen table, and I said, Mom, sign right here. And she goes, what's that? And I said, it's nothing to worry about. So she signs it, and I said, thank you. I picked it up. I got almost to the door, and she says, kind of like thinking out loud to us, I didn't know you could go in at 16.
I told my wife, I said, no problem. My dad will take me down to the draft board. They're not going to draft me. I had a bad back. I could barely walk. I had a bad knee. I had a broken shoulder bone.
So when I graduated, I went over to Eugene to sign up in the Coast Guard. There was no recruiting office there. Well, after we just spent all my money in the big party, I couldn't go home. So I decided to join the Navy.
My husband was Floyd. He was drafted into the Army in 1955, and the last 3 months of his duty he spent at Desert Rock, Nevada, and at that point he did witness several test bombs, above ground tests.
We got to the final room. The doctor looks at us and says, is there anybody in here that has a problem that you haven't spoken about? Yeah, I've got many issues. And he says, walk across the room. And I walked across the room. He says, come on back. He said, looks good to me. Watch. Boom! 1A.
I was 19 years of age, and we were stationed in Hawaii. I was in the Navy, and they told us we were cleared for a very special clearance for top secret, which made us all feel good. And we found ourselves at the nuclear test sites at Christmas Island. And that was in 1962. And after several of the blasts, as we were steaming away from the island, I can remember myself saying, we've got to have a clean bomb. My government would not do this to me. And I found out, yes, they would. And they did.
They never told us what we were there for. And I didn't know what an atomic bomb was. I didn't know what radiation was.
I knew we was going to hardtack operation that was nuclear. I didn't realize what it was entailed. One of my friends there, and it scared the heck out of him. He went AWOL.
We just were told it was going to be a bomb test. We had no idea what it was going to be. I didn't know anything about atomic energy at the time.
First told us about Red Wing when we were actually on our way. We know that we're going to take part in these atomic tests, but we really don't know what they are.
They found him in a closet at his grandma's place and flew him to Hawaii.
They didn't tell us anything. Not a thing. No training whatsoever.
Well, they told us what was going to happen. We were involved in an operation called Operation Plum Bob, and that it was explosion of atomic bombs, and there would be radiation all over. Well, what's radiation? How's it going to affect us? We don't know. I knew nothing about radiation because nobody ever told me.
No, I had no idea what we were going to be doing there.
You're trusting your admirals, right? They're not going to put you into a situation where your life is on the line. Nobody thought that way.
I signed that piece of paper that I absolutely will not tell no one about this, not even my wife, or not even my mother, or anyone. If I did, they would hunt me down.
It was so top secret that they couldn't tell us what was going on. We'd have to read it in the Las Vegas paper when the next shot was going to be, because
we were told that we broke our secrecy oath, we could be tried for treason. So I never told my girlfriend. She asked me where we were going. I said, I can't tell you. When we got to Pearl Harbor, I got a letter from her, and it had a clipping out of the newspaper in San Diego Union Tribune, and it told the names of all the ships, how many people, where we were going, what we were going to do.
You're to eat none of the fruits or vegetables growing there. Eat none of the fish that you may catch. or none of the coconuts. Nothing about radiation.
And we got ready to leave. He said, "I'm not going." He took his shoes off and jumped over the ship, and he swam to shore. But they captured him, and that was the last time I seen him.
And when I went aboard the ship, I started hearing all these stories these fellas were telling me, my shipmates, about how when they were up on deck during the test and the bombs went off, they could see the bone in their arms, and I didn't know whether to believe them or not. You know, it was fantastic to hear this stuff.
We were being prepared to go to war, and we were going to have to be subjected to, we thought, atomic warfare.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And I could see through my arms. It was light and really bright, and my back felt like I had my back to a furnace door.
The one that I seen that I remember the most was George. I was in the boats with a bunch of scientists. They all had their bunny suits on and their dark glasses and all their gear, their Geiger counters. From 13 miles we headed in, we got within 5 miles under the bomb, and it started blistering the paint on the boat. And the scientists told us to turn around and get the hell out of there.
And we got in the trenches about 5:30 in the morning. I get my gas mask on, I grab my helmet, and by then it's like 1. And I get my helmet halfway up in my head, and it was 0, and the blast went off. The first shock wave rolled out, and is where all your heat comes out too, because I got the back of my ear singed from that. Then I could see, it was so bright that I could see the smallest pebble in the bank beside me and all the crevices in that pebble with the naked eye. And then the all clear was sound, and we got out of the trench, stood there, and you watched the mushroom cloud form. And you could see it sucking the raw dirt up. It was like, you felt like you could reach out and touch it. It was so close. Until it actually literally blotted the sun out, and you were really literally standing in the shadow of that cloud.
Richard is in the band. The band is present with dignitaries pre-test ceremony. The band was told that at a given signal to get into the trench right alongside their bandstand. And Richard said, with his eyes shut tight and his hands in front of his eyes, he could see the blood in his fingers.
Anyway, so I wound up putting little animals in the ground on the 5th one. There were sheep and goats and pigs, 2 horses, cows. There was all kinds of them. But I thought that was pretty cruel, putting those animals in the holes where they couldn't go anywhere and drop that bomb.
Umbrella shot, which was an underwater shot, and we were sideways to it, and when it went off, the ocean raised, boom, and then it broke through, and there was a ship out there at 0 that broke in half, and half of it spun off like a little toy. And watching the bomb test, you saw 2 little ripples come across the water. It was no big wave, just 2 small ripples. And when it hit the ship, we rolled, and I thought we were going to go over. Now, some of the people in damage control said we did a 39-degree roll, and 1 more degree and we would have went over.
And here was this humongous light. It was amethyst and purples and reds and sort of, it was beautiful in an awful sort of way.
We had to decontaminate everything. Decks of the ship, you had to go through and decontaminate them with water. You pump water out of the ocean that's contaminated to decontaminate the ship.
Before the test, we'd put the pigs out. A lot of them we put in cylinders, which was a big aluminum tube, all staked on the ground. The facility test was for a mass casualty test, determined glass after a shot. That was horrific. We had to euthanize all the pigs that were still alive and the ones that we didn't send back to Walter Reed. And All of my training was to keep animals healthy and alive, and that really bothered me.
Most of us were just young sailors and didn't know anything about this. But all the scientists on the ship, they were scared to death. They didn't know if they'd start that bomb, if it would just continue going, or if it would ever stop on its own. And so they were just petrified, really.
Rarely did we ever talk about the tests with each other because I think we were still sort of in awe of what we just did. And I think a lot of the people, I began to think, you know, there's something basically wrong here.
We want to take care of the NAAV cleanup guys, the service, the veterans that were there to clean up NAAV back in 1977. We want to get them classified as atomic veterans.
Back in 1978, I was given orders to go over to the Marshall Islands, specifically the Inuitak Atoll, for a radiation cleanup project. It was titled Inuitak Radiological Cleanup Project.
2.5 years into my 3-year enlistment, I was called into my CO's office one morning, and he asked me if I wanted to spend the last 6 months of my military service on a tropical island. Anytime the military tells you asks you if you want to spend time on a tropical island, you know it's not true.
Never heard of the Marshall Islands, never heard of Inuitak.
And we did not know where the Marshall Islands were.
I got sent to Inuitak, Atoll, Marshall Islands for nuclear cleanup.
Well, you're going to clean up radiation so you could give back the islands to the natives.
We were taking between 6 inches and 18 inches of soil off of the other islands. They just dump the soil onto the boats and then bring it out to ruin it. We buried the stuff in a bomb blast crater that was from the cactus blast.
And don't worry, the only background radiation is the same as if you was in Denver, Colorado.
They knew we were getting cooked. That's why our RAD badges all showed damage.
So we took the soil and we mixed it with Portland cement and had concrete pumps that would pump it out to the center to a little raft we had out there with a crane. And we did that until we filled it in completely.
We had no protection, no radiation training.
We would literally pick up contaminated metal with our bare hands, and the Geiger counters would go off and they'd say, throw it in there.
We left the center empty, so we threw all our radioactive metals in there, any plutonium.
In my estimation, it's probably about 400 pounds of plutonium. That means that that's going to be a radioactive hotspot for hundreds and hundreds of generations.
We were told that the expectation was that RUNIT would never be acceptable.
We didn't know that there were 43 nuclear tests. We didn't know that the island of Lojua was radioactive.
No training on radiation whatsoever.
We were told we were going to be in yellow suits with boots. Everything was going to be taped shut.
Where are the suits? Shouldn't these guys be in suits? They said, the suits are useless, man. They cook in them.
I never ever saw a yellow suit.
Hotel California is where I stayed. They were one of the hooches that had a Geiger counter in it. I asked what it was, and they told me what it was, and they told me don't turn it on. And I asked, well, why? And they said, because you'll never sleep. The thing will just keep tick, 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 all day long and all night long.
I said, well, where's the mask? They should at least have masks, protect them from breathing all this crap in, all the dust. They said, well, some guys have respirators, but majority of them don't.
After I made such an issue about having a dust mask, my lieutenant at the time told me, well, if you're that concerned about it, just take your t-shirt off and wrap it around your head.
Badges, anything? And they're going, well, they don't work too well out here. I said, what about your dosimeters? And they said, well, we can recalibrate them, but they just go back because of the high humidity. Things just don't work out here like they normally would.
They bagged them in 2 separate shipments. Their badges from Inuitak and our badges from Lojua. Our badges show 98, 99, 100% damage. Their badges show less than 2% damage. Why is that? Because they didn't want any of our badges read.
We didn't have any safety gear. I was part of the second team to ever arrive on Runit Island. The first team, they are no longer alive. There's 19 of them, and they are all dead.
The beginning of 1978, the distillation plant that they were building came online. They had a hose running out into the lagoon, which was contaminated with all the radioactive particles, and that's what they gave us to drink and to bathe in.
I said, what the fuck are we doing out here? All we're doing is just containing it all into one area. But we're not decontaminating the islands because from what I was finding out, the islands were hot enough that it'd be another 25,000 years before they were safe.
No, it was a total failure, and it took a lot of my brother's lives, and they need to admit to it. We did what we were asked, and we did it.
Everybody's concerned about Fukushima, everybody's concerned about Chernobyl. Those are minor incidents compared to what was done in the Marshall Islands.
They were simply human guinea pigs is what they were.
I feel like we may have been part of a human radiation experiment.
Used us as guinea pigs, and we knew they were using us as guinea pigs.
The reason they didn't want us talking about this was not security breach. It was they didn't want anybody to know the health hazards of atomic bomb tests.
I was 76 days in the hospital. I went from 210 pounds to 130. I had pneumonia. I had jaundice. I had 8 blood transfusions. I had a heart attack. I questioned the VA on taking responsibility for it because I believed it was caused by radiation.
I have had 4 cancers. I've had 3 different forms of cancer.
VA's approach to radiation is either out of ignorance or blatant denial.
The health issues that I have been passed down to my children. I've dislocated or broken over 20 joints and bones in my body.
My bones and joints just give way and break, but I've had 22 broken bones and 16 joint surgeries before I was age 40. I have 3 children, 2 are having joint and bone issues. My daughter was told she had hips of an 80-year-old, and she's a very physically fit, petite young lady.
One of my children ended up very early, had to have all his teeth removed because they were just falling apart. I have the bone structure of a 70-year-old man.
My doctor tells me I've got the bones of a 90-year-old man.
We were told during the orientation too that we might think about the fact that we may not have children right away. If any of you are planning to have children, maybe you should do it a little bit later.
I was debriefed at Tripler Hospital. They looked at my medical records and they told me that I received too much radiation and I shouldn't have children. This was devastating to me. At the age of 18 years old, that tore me up.
Now we discovered that Richard has a pituitary adenoma. Pituitary adenoma has definitely been related to exposure to ionized radiation. The decision was made to remove it. 6.5 years ago, Richard suffered an intracranial bleed. That was devastating. The bleed came from the removal of the pituitary adenoma. I believe that all of his medical condition is directly connected to his participation as an atomic soldier.
They told me that I had a disease called multiple myeloma. I never heard of it before. Doctor said, well, there's good reason because it's very, very rare. What they told me that it was a abnormality of the white blood cells that comes out of the bone marrow.
I don't think I had any physical. I think there was probably some psychological things that went on because of my time there.
And I'm absolutely sure that most of the problems that I'm having today
And I've had, down through these years, it was because of the radiation from the bomb shots. I've applied to the VA for the presumptive causes, but we always get there's not enough evidence there, or the law won't let us compensate you for this, and we don't think you have enough radiation in your body.
We're trying to get the Atomic Veteran Service Medal. Been fighting for it since 45. 46, I guess, is when they first were told that they would have one given to them. One of the bills that we got, or we're trying to get passed, is that anyone from 1946 until today's date or on to the future that is around depleted uranium or any ionized radiation will become an atomic veteran. We want to get July 16th Observance Day for atomic veterans, and we get some of these things done, it'll open the door a lot more for more of us.
We need it because we don't have enough recognition.
I think they ought to have a national day, and I think they ought to have that medal.
I do want to be recognized. That's my goal, is to have that put on my plaque at the cemetery, VA cemetery. Atomic veteran. I can do that without them.
I'd like to see the atomic veterans get recognition and compensation for the time that we've lost.
I am Donna Garacki, and I am the widow of an atomic veteran.
My name is Leslie Garacki Lewis. My father was an atomic veteran.
Well, I'm Jim Dangerfield, and I'm an atomic veteran.
I am one of the Laujoa animals from NAAV Atoll. My name is Paul Edward Laird II.
It's Edward Wallace, and we were there for 2 atomic bombs in that area, and then we had the hydrogen bomb.
My name is Wayne Brooks, and I was proud to serve my country, and I'm proud to be an atomic veteran.
I'm Harry Daniel. I'm a Laujoa animal, and damn proud of it.
My name is Kenneth Kasich.
My name is William Griffith. I go by Bill. I'm an atomic veteran.
I'm Gail Seifert, atomic veteran.
I'm Claude Swanson, in nuclear medicine, and I'm an atomic veteran.
My name is Leo Ford. I go by Bud Ford. I'm an atomic vet.
I'm Michael Horton. I'm a veteran. I'm proud to have been a Laujoa animal.
John Bannon, Bravo Company, 84th Engineer Battalion, Laujoa animal, and I'm proud of it.
I'm William Richard Kraft.
I'm Otis Wendell Pearson. I was in the Air Force, and I am an atomic veteran.
My name is Ken Brownell, and I am one of the original Laujoa animals.
My name is Gary Joe Smith, and I am an atomic veteran.
I'm Herman Frank Farmer. I'm an atomic veteran. I'm Robert Pfeiffer, atomic veteran.
All right, I'm Richard Harley.
My name is Alan Lehman, and I am a Laujoa animal. And a runic glow by night.
Aaron's Graham. I'm a Laujoa animal. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk and say how I feel about things. It's been 40 years that I've actually held this head. So
my name is Walt Kennedy, and I'm an atomic veteran.
My name is Fred Walden, Marine Corps, 1957, and I am an atomic veteran.
My name is Bill McGee.
Mark Sargent, United States Army, Laujoa animal, atomic veteran wannabe. We're fighting our government for it every day.
My name is Sergeant Robert Strongbear Bates, United States Army. And yes, I was a Laujoa animal.
My name is Randy Miller. I'm an atomic veteran.
My name is Jim Andrel, and right now I'm 62 years old. It's roughly a slight bit over 40 years since I've been on the island of Laujoa.
I am Steve Osborne, a nuclear veteran.
And this man is my hero.